So, Mr. Pwele, great to see you on
Thank
BRICS
you.
Africa channel.
Thank you.
Today you had a great session with the panel.
Yes.
What do you think came out of it?
Well, I think today's conversation was critical in the sense that it begins to address um, issues that we've left on the buy side. One of which is issues around intra-Africa trade. We've spoken so much about intra-Africa trade, but we haven't gotten to the core of why that is not happening. Everybody's saying we are 15% or less intra-trading, but what is the core or the cause for that? And I think it was very clear in today's conversation that, number one, we are not collaborating. I mean, right from the DDG, she mentioned it to say, instead of collaborating as African countries, we are competing.
Okay.
Right? Now, if you look at, and then it talks to my takeaway from the conversation around energy and Grand Inga. It took our president, President Cyril Ramaphosa, this year in April in Paris, to stand up and say, I will offer an offtake for Inga, for the conversation around Inga to begin. Now, it takes somebody bold like that to take a position that transforms Africa. We are good to say we've got the critical minerals, copper, cobalt, lithium, and so on. We want to make sure we beneficiate. We want to make sure that car components come out. But what are we doing about it? Number one is energy. Do we have the energy to drive that narrative? Right? So for me, the conversation today, talking about Grand Inga and giving that impetus to Grand Inga was awakening.
Okay.
It was awakening, and it can only move further. I'm proud to say that we formed a group of, as you know, Grand Inga or Inga needs a lot of money.
Sure.
But what we said was that let's sit as African DFIs and form an association that can drive this narrative. Yes, we're going to bring our cooperating partners later, but let's be the driver of this narrative. So we formed an association we are calling ourselves a group of 5. That's Africa Development Bank, BRICS Bank, which is New Development Bank, Afrexim Bank, DBSA, and IDC. Now, all of a sudden, we begin to drive the African narrative.
Sure.
And for me, that is critical. If we can collaborate, if we can drive, we need to lead
But what
our
are the
journey.
impediments of this non-collaboration when already about 44 countries have agreed and signed? What is stopping you?
Absolutely. I think for me, it was also a collaboration from the lenders.
Okay.
Because what we've been doing in the past was to compete for transactions and not knowing that we can actually collaborate on that transaction. I mean, a transaction like the Rail Master Plan for SADC, transaction like the Grand Inga, the transmission network for SADC, those are projects that we can't afford to compete against. We're supposed to collaborate. And this collaboration has begun at the very senior level of our executives, which means it's being taken seriously. And I can tell you, so far we are moving in a direction that I would feel, I mean, I've been in this business long enough now, over 20 years, but I can see the needle moving.
Okay. But the DDG was, from the GTI, was mentioning that your policy alignment is still not in place. How do you at least expedite those one would think that would be simple steps that you will take before you start the collaboration so that the governance of things can run smoothly?
Yeah, I think from a governance point of view, in terms of policy, if you look at, I'll speak for DBSA, for instance, we have an SA Inc. policy.
Okay.
We're calling it an initiative, but it's a policy. I mean, remember, you can have a policy, but if you don't implement it, it's just a policy out there. But what we're calling it an initiative. We are deliberate when we go out to say that whatever we fund, we need to begin to see, number one, South African content, number two, regional content. So we are deliberate on that, and I think for us it's not even negotiable.
Sure.
So in terms of alignment, we think we are on a
Yes.
right step.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
The president just did mention that he would give off takes for the Grand Inga. Tell me what kind of percentage at the moment people are talking about 15% intra-Africa trade. Do you think will it, if we solve that Great Inga project, where do you think the project of intra-Africa trade will be sitting at? 25%, 30%?
I think I would not speak for the numbers because I haven't worked them out, but I can tell you it will be significant. Because for the simple reason that, as you heard in today's narrative, the conversation was that we can't industrialize without energy.
Sure.
So everything begins and starts with energy. And Grand Inga is renewable energy, which will provide base load. Now, such a base load, renewable, I mean, really, even from a competitiveness point of view for South Africa, because going forward, you know, this carbon tax and all that, most of our products that we produce, if the energy input is not renewable, it will become uncompetitive. Now, if you translate that and you substitute it with clean energy from Grand, I can tell you, honestly speaking, it's a no-brainer.
But then why are we not starting that as a priority before we add new things of the energy mix?
That's why I said that it needed our board president to take that first step, which he has done. The rest is up to us to then make it work. We've got now political support, political will is there to do it. He challenged us as our president to say, I want this to work because we are going to offtake this. I mean, the rest is for us technocrats to make sure that that thing works.
Yeah, I think it was a few years ago we had the African Development Bank President Adesina here in Sandton, also talking about the Grand Inga. Is there any progress from those conversations?
Absolutely. If you look at President Adesina and President Ramaphosa, they talk from the same hymn. If you see Adesina put, that's why I was telling you that there's no Grand Inga without transmission. Adesina put transmission finance, grant to do the transmission network, feasibility. Our president came and said, I'm going to offer the offtake. I mean, what more can you ask for?
Sure.
It's up to us, really. If it doesn't work, it will be more us a technocrat than the political will.
And do you think the technocrats are up to the task of high
Well,
performance?
you put us to test.
Okay, all right. Okay.
Yes, you put us to test. I think honestly we want to make it work. I mean, these monthly or so meetings that we've been having, you can see that everybody now is moving towards making this thing work.
And do you think today, this week, you have the right people in the room to have this conversation moving towards implementation?
I think so. I think so. I think so.
Okay.
I think so.
Date, thank you so much for joining us on BRICS TV.
Thank you, my brother. Thank you. Thank you.